Hello, geometry students. Welcome back to section 7.7. This is all about scale. You've probably all know or heard of scale drawings or scale models, or seen scale models or scale drawings. So here we go. The biggest example I think of is a map. That's really a big, common thing that we're all accustomed to. So first of all, there's a difference between a scale and a scale factor. So let's start here and let's talk about this. Here we go. A scale model or a scale drawing is a drawing with lengths proportional to the object. We've been using the word proportional a lot in chapter 7, right? Because it's all about similar figures. Think about a map. A map is a scaled down version. We can't make it all like skewed and crazy, like when you reduce or enlarged a JPEG or something on the computer. We want it to be identical, just smaller. So it's still proportional. So scale itself, this is where we begin. We just set up a ratio. Everybody knows what a ratio is, right? A ratio is a fraction. So we set up that fraction or ratio, the length of the model to the actual length. So, and I know I just had you write it down or hear me say it. The model length comes first. So a scale is model to actual, or put it in the fraction form if you prefer of a ratio. And here's the difference between scale and scale factor. You can use different units. Think of a map. 1 inch is equal to 100 miles, or 10 centimeters equals 100 kilometers. You can use different units on a scale. That's okay, no big deal. But of course, you need to put them in simplest form. We do not want it to be, crazy numbers. Also, one thing that might come up, you cannot have decimals. No decimals in your ratio. So we need to talk about how to simplify if you do have a decimal. Scale factor is slightly the same and slightly different. You know how we like to do that. So first of all, scale factor must have the same units. So that's the difference. We can't have inches and miles. We have to have inches and inches, or miles and miles. So we need to convert units using our scale. So we start with our scale. 1 inch is 100 miles, and then we convert. Here's the little key that makes things a little bit easier. Always convert to the smaller unit. Always convert to the smaller unit. So if I'm talking about smaller unit, if I'm talking about 1 inch to 100 miles, I'm going to turn everything into inches. I'm going to always convert to the smallest unit. So now here's the question. Do you know your conversions? Do you know what things are? We know the simple ones, right? Like 1 foot. I don't know if you have room to write this down, but 1 foot, we all know that's 12 inches. How about a yard? You know how many feet are in a yard, right? 3 feet in 1 yard. How about a mile? Do you know feet or do you know yards? 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. Let's see, or if you prefer, a mile is equal to 1,760 yards. What about the metric system? Do you know what 1 meter is equal to? 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. The metric system is always so much easier because everything is based on tens. Or maybe, hopefully, you might know or now know that 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. We always, comparable meters in yards. You have an idea. A meter stick is a little bit longer than a yardstick. It's about 39 point something inches. So you have some idea. So 1,000 meters is a kilometer. So that's important. So we're going to do two kinds of problems. We are going to use scale to figure things out, and then we're also going to go to that scale factor. So I don't know if you wrote those on a sticky note or if you got those or need those, but those are things that might help if you do not know your conversions or how to convert things. We can talk about that. All right, so that's the big information. So scale is just scale. It's just a comparison or ratio. Scale factor has to be in units. So the distance between Boston and Chicago on a map is 9 inches. If the scale on the map is 1 inch to 95 miles, what's the actual distance from Boston to Chicago? Now, I know a lot of you are going to be able to just multiply this out. You got yourself an answer. But remember, we're talking about the proportion. So if you can multiply it out, show me what you're multiplying. If you want a set system that works every time, let's make ourselves a proportion. We use that word proportional. 1 inch is 95 miles. I like to put the units in there because then I can make sure everything lines up nicely. What's the actual distance? So that would be miles that I'm looking at. And it says the distance on the map is 9 inches. So now both of my inches are on top, miles are on bottom. This is an easy, quick cross multiply. So 1x is equal to 95.9 or 95 times 9, which I know that most of you probably knew. Oh, I'm just going to multiply that out and I've got it. It ends up being 855 miles. We could put decimals in there if it's 7.5 inches. You can do all of those kinds of things. Let's see, a miniature replica of a fighter jet is 4 inches long. Does anybody see like model cars and model jets and boats and all that kind of stuff? The actual length of the jet is 12.8 yards. What's the scale of the model? So remember, scale is asking just to set up a ratio. And remember, it's always model to actual. And then simplify, and we're not allowed to have decimals in our ratio. So easy peasy, right? 4 inches for the model to 12.8 yards for the actual. Don't love this decimal. So you can let your calculator help you out, or you can figure a different way. What I usually do, and by the way, you could write that as 4 to 12.8. What I usually do is times by 10, because if I times by 10, I'm going to get 128. On the top, I'm going to get 40. That's easier to simplify. I believe you can divide everything by 8 or something like that, or let your calculator do this for you. A lot of times a calculator will not let you put a decimal in when you're using the fraction button. So knowing how to do this could be really helpful. I believe that simplifies down to 5 to 16. 5 to 16, or 5 to 16 if you like. And remember, it is 5 inches to 16 yards. So I wish that I had rewritten question B. So there's our scale, by the way, 5 to 16. I wish I had asked, instead of how many times is long, I wish I had just said, what is the scale factor? So let's change that. So let's turn that scale, 5 to 16, into the scale factor. It's actually telling you how much larger something is. Just like when we did our similar triangles, the scale factor was 2, it was 2 times longer. So 5 inches to 16 yards. And my advice is always to go to the smaller unit. So I'm going to turn everything into inches. So what I want to know, I'm going to keep this 5 inches to something inches. I want to say 16 yards. I'm going to do this over on the side. 16 yards is equal to how many inches? Well, 1 yard is equal to, if there's 3 feet in every yard and 12 inches in every foot, would you agree that 1 yard is 36 inches? Maybe you already knew that. So 16 yards, we could actually set that up as a proportion. 1 yard to 36 inches is equal to 16 yards to how many inches? Do a quick math problem, and I believe that that's going to be 576 inches. So my scale factor is 5 to 576. Simplified, right? Nothing goes into 5 and into 576. Let's jump down to over here. Is it a number? This one? A scale is 3 centimeters to 45 meters. Find the length that 90 meters would be on a scale drawing. And what does the length 7.5 centimeters represent? So no scale factor here, just a scale of 3 centimeters to 45 meters. Technically, right, I should have simplified that. I don't know if you notice. So for part A, I want to find the length that 90 meters would be on a scale drawing. So if you set this up as a proportion and you put your labels, 90 meters has to be lined up with the meters. So then this would be my x. How many centimeters would that be? You might have been able to common sense your way through that and see that it's double. If not, set up a proportion, cross multiply. You're going to end up with 45x is equal to 270. When you divide that out, I believe you're going to end up with a 6. So 6 centimeters for every 90 meters. So it's just knowing where to put things. That's why I like to set it up as a proportion and put my labels on there. So B, we've got the same scale, 3 centimeters to 45 meters. And what length does 7.5 centimeters represent? Well, 7.5 has to go up here by the centimeters, so x would have to go down here at the meters. Cross multiply those guys. It's not so easy to common sense your way through this one because 3 doesn't double 3.5. That's a tricky one. So if I multiply this out, I get 3x. I kind of just ignore the units here. I'm not sure if you noticed that. I believe it's gosh, I don't even know what it is. 45 times 7.5. Let me do the math real quick. That would be 337.5. Divide by 3, and I believe that's going to be a 112.5. And my units on that would be meters. So 7.5 centimeters represents 112.5 meters. So we're still using proportions. The scale factor is the new thing, and we'll do more practice with those as we go. This question right here, B, what scale factor? So there's another opportunity to practice that. That's it for section 7.7. I look forward to seeing you and getting some problems done and making sure everybody is good with these. Have a great day, guys.